That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Old Dads, the directorial debut of Bill Burr, which is being released courtesy of Netflix on October 20th, 2023.
Directorial debut. The story, three best friends become fathers late in life and find themselves battling preschool principals, millennial CEOs, and anything created after 1987. What's your pull quote?
It's kind of long.
Oh, wow, like all the others? Okay.
In the annals of men behaving badly comedies, it's unclear where something like Old Dads belongs. Lazily critical of contradictory tendencies and progressive millennials, while also betraying the liberating rebelliousness of its Gen X sensibilities. It's loosely amusing in its formulaic narrative, but it does play like the pilot of Bill Burr rehashing Father Knows Best.
Well, mine is longer than usual, too. As a fan of Bill Burr, I think his directorial debut suffers from him having to share the spotlight. The beauty of his comedy is that he's saying the things we feel we can't. However, it's not as fun when we have characters explaining why his comments aren't funny. So, yeah, this... based on the premise, this movie is exactly what you think it would be.
Yeah, it feels very much like an Adam Sandler version of... What's that movie with Vince Vaughn and... Owen Wilson, I think, the internship where they start working for Google as grown-ass men.
Yeah, like some Gen Xers, which is my generation too, complaining about modern things and finding that they're wrong in the end. It's not as clever as I wish it would have been. It's also not as like boundary pushing as I wanted it to be.
No, and it kind of reminds me like in the mid-2000s there was a movie called Wild Hogs.
Yeah. So the three best friends are Bill Burr, Bokeem Woodbine, and Bobby Cannavale. Mm-hmm. So
Jack, Connor, and Mike.
Bill, Bokeem, and Bobby, the three Bs. Anyway, they're best friends. They owned a business together making jerseys, like the shirts, and they end up selling it. But they're going to stay on as employees. But there's a new CEO, this young guy.
Aspen Bell, played by Miles Robbins.
So there are two things going on because we have the sale of their business, them working for this young guy. Immediately, this new CEO fires anyone born before 1988. So that's happening. Then for each of the guys, so Bill Burr, he's like the main guy. His wife is pregnant.
Leah, played by Katie Aselton.
And we see that he's already struggling with this sort of like suburban dad life and dealing with parents who are much younger than he is. Bokeem, he has the best life. He's totally free because he's divorced from his wife. He doesn't have to pay child support anymore. He's a successful lawyer. And he has a new girlfriend who doesn't want to be in a committed relationship, and they have great sex. And then you have Bobby Cannavale, who's married to an awful woman, and he's obsessed with being young. So their business, the new CEO says, I know what we need to do. We need to get a spokesperson for the brand, but this spokesperson needs to be the anti-influencer, someone who does not want to be famous. So they find this like Marlboro Man type guy, played by C. Thomas Howell, like this wilderness man. And the new CEO tells the three Bs, you go get him, because he's old like you. So they take a road trip with one of the younger employees named Travis. They do secure C. Thomas Howell's the new ambassador. However, that rental car had like built-in surveillance, and the rental car company sells it to the new CEO, which was so stupid.
Yeah.
But in that footage, we see that the three guys are making comments about Caitlyn Jenner, which are considered problematic.
Untoward.
Which I thought was silly. And they get fired. And because of their morality clause, they also lose all the equity they had made from the sale.
It's liquidated into the general fund.
So it's a huge loss for them. So now they're down and out. Everything culminates in them taking a trip to Vegas because Bokeem finds out his girlfriend is pregnant and she wants to keep the baby. So he's depressed. Bobby's miserable because his wife's awful. And Bill and his wife get into a huge fight because she's like, you're an awful person. You're always angry. I don't want to raise my children with you.
Well, you're forgetting the subplot that instigated that.
Oh God, Bill's kid goes to this like Montessori type school, like this fancy private school that's run by Dr. L, who's played by
Rachael Harris.
playing the character she plays in a lot of things.
A difficult woman.
She's good at it.
She's very good at it. Although, side note, if you ever want to see her in a different vein, there's a great 2011 indie film called Natural Selection. I think she's amazing in.
Well, Bill gets in trouble for using the C word. See you next Tuesday.
He calls her a stumpy C word.
So he's tasked with raising money for the school because we find out Dr. L is just obsessed with money. So she's kind of a fraud. But he has to host this party to raise money. And so that's like a side plot that's happening. But that party happens and Bill ends up like blowing up on some people. So that's when his wife gets upset and says, we're separating. But they go to Vegas, but they don't make it to Vegas. They end up in like a Palm Springs casino, which I think is weird because they live in Woodland Hills. So the drive from Woodland Hills to Palm Springs is not that much. I mean, it's pretty far. Like they could have just gone to Vegas. But anyway, they end up in Palm Springs. And I guess their time at the strip club shows them that they need to go back home and deal with their problems.
Well, they're called back because Leah goes into labor.
Bill's wife.
Yeah.
And I guess all's well that ends well.
And they're all too drunk to drive, so they have to call an Uber driver who's played by Bruce Dern.
This old rickety man, which is kind of funny.
Bruce Dern is funny, but it's supposed to be Bill Burr having the epiphany, like, that is what I'm going to become.
So he decides to act right. So then Bill Burr apologizes to his wife, says he'll do better. The final scene is him. There's an opportunity where he should go off on this guy who like says something to him, and then he sort of uses his anger management skills to stay calm. And then we get the obligatory, like, this is where everyone is now. So we find out Dr. L gets arrested for fraud. But then we're told that because she's a white woman, she's not going to jail. Then Bobby Cannavale, who's obsessed with being young, gets a neck lift. And then Bokeem Woodbine, his character's a lawyer, so he ends up suing the company that bought their company, so they get some money back.
The end.
Real basic.
It's very basic, and I really like Bokeem Woodbine, and he has no thing to do in this.
No, he doesn't.
But neither does Bobby Cannavale, really. I don't know.
I don't really have. I mean, the jokes just. So the other thing that bothered me is just in life in general. Like I know people my age who have like multiple kids, and like they'll, they're like 42 pregnant again. And then they do that thing where they act like, oh, kids are awful. And like, then why do you keep having them? Like, if you hate this life of yours, why do you keep making babies? I can think of like this many people I know with kids who try to act like, it's almost like it's cool now to pretend that you think kids are a bad idea, but you had them anyway.
I think it's just weird because it's not addressing this strange contradictory nature between Bill Burr, his character, who's really, I guess it's really him because this is semi-autobiographical, and the life he's leading, because it just doesn't make sense that this man would want these things for this kid.
Right, like this suburban life, and then we're told that like he hates this private school that his kid goes to, but then we find out it was his idea because he didn't want the kid to go to public school. But then he says, I went to public school and it was fine. Like you said, I don't understand why this character has this life when he seems to have the resources to have a different life.
Well, and then they're beholden to Dr. L because her recommendation for the kid is going to control where the kid goes. Aren't we in L.A.? Come on now.
Yeah, they're acting like this is the only way their kid can get into a good school, but okay. Speaking in the same vein, Bill Burr's character, I wrote down that it feels like when we join the movie, that we're watching a character live his life for the first time. But this is not his first time at the rodeo. Like,
you know that Dr. L is a difficult, annoying woman, and you have this agonizing outburst that makes no sense.
It almost, like, I also wrote down that I wouldn't be surprised if we find out he's an alien. Because he's acting like he just doesn't understand how his life works.
The comic who fell to earth.
Yeah. So when Bill Burr's character has the outburst at the school and uses the C word, he has to go back and apologize. And immediately he goes, because part of his apology is he has to apologize to all of the parents of this school, which are like 40 of them. And he goes, I'm sorry to the 6 of you who heard what I said and then you told the other 40. Because then I did think this was there are moments that I had the vibe of what I would have wanted to make it feel fresh.
Sure.
Which is like when he has to apologize to all these parents who weren't even present, who are saying how they're triggered by it. There's a black man who says he's feels body shamed.
Because he used the word stumpy.
Because he called her stumpy. And Bill Burr's looking at him like, are you for real? And then there's this one white woman who says that using the C word is like using the N word. And then Bill's response is really funny. He's like, well, I think it's kind of different, like 400 years of oppression and slavery. But those were the moments that I thought worked really well. Also, when Bill and Bobby are tasked with organizing this fundraiser, so they're with the other parents coming up with ideas, and Bill's character uses the word tranny, and everyone goes, you can't say that, the word is trans. And then Bill makes a joke like, well, Mikey Mike, like,
I just put a Y on it.
yeah, like, what's the big deal? And I felt like those moments felt fun because it feels like his stand-up and it's kind of innocent and like his intention's not bad. And I wish we would have had more of that, but most of these jokes are so basic, especially with the new CEO. It's all about you guys are old and I'm young, and there are a lot of sentiments that he has that I also agree with, but I think there's a much smarter way to skewer and just roast the millennials that I think that this doesn't quite do. Well, no, because like even with the party, once it's thrown, we find out that. Because one theme that some of the parents throw out there is the United States of gender. Like they wanted to make the party about different genders and have the staff be made entirely of like trans and non-binary people, which of course Bill and Bobby are like, what? And then when we get to the party, we find out that they ended up having a non-themed party so that everyone felt comfortable. I feel like moments like that kind of worked better.
Yeah, it's not a complete loss. I just think because this was written by Burr and Ben Tischler, I just think it could have been scrubbed a little bit to really be smart.
Well, because it feels basic and tired, like because there's a joke that's similar to that Netflix movie You People with Eddie Murphy and Jonah Hill, where when they're on this road trip, the 3 guys plus the younger employee named Travis, who doesn't look young to me, but whatever, we find out that he likes like hip hop. So Bokeem goes in on him, like, what are some of your favorites? And this fool says NWA. So Bokeem's like, okay, well, what songs do you like? Can you rap them? Well, what do you do when you come across the N-word? And he's saying he doesn't say it. But then we find out that the new CEO has footage from Travis's apartment, which is so ridiculous. And we find out that he does use the N-word when he's rapping. That all felt like from 20 years ago. This is kind of on the same. I feel about this movie how I feel about You People.
Sure.
It just feels tired and late.
Sure, but not with a, it's not that what it's saying isn't pertinent or important or worth examining about, cultural collisions between generations, but it I don't know, it just could be better, I think.
What would you give this movie?
2. I mean, it feels a little long. I don't know who it's for because I feel like the, Gen Xers are they going to relate to these men that want to be these old dads? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure who. I mean, I'm a Bill Burr fan, so I did giggle a lot because I like him, but it wasn't enough to give it a good score.
It's similar to, because Bill Burr's also in, and it comes to mind, The King of Staten Island, which is loosely based on Pete Davidson's life, if you remember that. And it's like,
I would give this film 2 out of 5. Hit the thanks button, listen to our podcast. Bye.